Hey, gun people! Man, I'm telling you, man, this sheriff is a good dude. He don't play. I would love to have a boss like him because he just makes it easy to do the right thing. And you don't have to worry about the little weasels on who sucks up to who and who's kind of doing their little side shit. Because he is what all law enforcement should be. This is a great press conference.
We have employment at the sheriff's office, and we hire once a month. I meet with the men and women, and I said I expect you to be honest.
Just so you know, I've got it sped up a little bit to 1.5. So if he's talking fast, that's why.
Ethical and moral all the time. I expect you to treat people like you'd want your mother treated. And if you do that, you'll have a wonderful career here.
That's great advice, man. When the chief or somebody comes in, I remember at Woodland PD, the chief come in and goes, look, tell the truth, do your job, you won't have any problems, and don't take anything from the community. If you take a Coke, a glass of water, or anything from the community, I'll fire you. And we didn't take free shit in Woodland. You just didn't do it when that chief was there because he didn't put up with it. You did not, it wasn't, oh, here's a free cup of coffee, officer. No, I'm sorry, I can't take it. Had to pay for it. I mean, we'd be hot, sweaty. Somebody come outside, say, hey, can I offer you a glass of water? No, thank you, we're fine. We don't take things from the community. There's no bribery. There's no, you owe me or I'm going to get special treatment because I'm going to give you something on the side and you're going to take a bribe and you're going to take a free tank of gas or a free donut or none of that shit happened at Woodland. Now, every other agency I worked at happened all the time. It didn't happen at Woodland.
And then I go on to explain that, if you work for a fast food restaurant and they catch you sliding pizzas out the back door to their friends, they will terminate your employment and run you off. But there's a difference. If we find you violating the law at the sheriff's office, we will also terminate your employment, but we will lock you up in the county jail. We're held to a higher standard. You can't police a community if you don't hold yourself to a higher standard than you expect of the people from the community.
That's a critical point right now. Who thinks most police department holds themselves to a higher standard? I don't see anybody. I mean, this guy don't play. He'll put your picture up there. He don't play favorites. It's black and white. It's right or wrong. Hey, it is what it is. You either follow law and you do the right thing, or you don't.
Then I look at them and I say, do you understand what I said? And I have them all say, yes, sir, I understand. These folks forgot. They forgot what they were taught. They obviously didn't pay any attention to my warning. And as a result, we locked these 3 deputies up on Friday night. And here's how it started. These 3 folks were on our crime suppression team.
Okay, so crime suppression is your street team, is your, I've been on a few of them, CSU, crime suppression unit, etc. So basically that's your meat eaters that you go out there and you look for crimes. You're not working a beat, you're not tied to a beat, and you're not chasing radio calls. They pick the hard chargers and you go out and you find the bad guys and you chase the bad guy down and you deal with problems in a community that becomes problems. You can give that problem a specific attention, a string of burglaries, a string of robberies, a string of drug or gang use, etc. So these guys were on a street team, so they got kind of promoted to a better unit. They weren't having to chase calls or sit in the courtroom and, work as a bailiff.
We were receiving complaints and actually fears of gang activity and narcotics activity in a community, and they were sent there to try to keep the community safe, stop the narcotics dealing, and as a result, break up the gang activity. While patrolling in the Winter Haven or the Central District area, they came upon a suspect who ran a red light, John Rosinski, who has been with us for about 3.5 years, stopped the vehicle. He was backed up by Jamal Lawson and Garrett Cook. When they stopped, they...
Okay, so just looking at the pictures, who do you think took the money? Your answer should be, I don't know. You can't tell. I mean, it doesn't matter who. You can't tell by looking at these 3 who took the money. It has nothing to do with what they look like or how long. This guy's been in the department the longest, 5 years. He's got 3 years and he's got 3 years. Does that change on who took the money? No. We don't have enough facts.
Asked for permission to search the vehicle, which was denied, which is traditionally what our suspects do. We called a K-9. The K-9 did a search and alerted to drugs. They searched the vehicle and they found in the trunk of the vehicle marijuana, and alprazolam, controlled substances. So they arrested the suspect, and in the suspect's pocket, it was a female. She had more marijuana in small quantities and $723. When they wrote in their affidavit to put her in jail, and John Rosinski was the arresting deputy, they wrote that they seized a large quantity of cash. So they wrote it in the arrest affidavit, and they also wrote it in their initial report.
Now, this is just really stupid. You write in your report that you seized or seized a large quantity of cash. Then when you book the evidence, you don't book any cash. Okay, we call that a clue. Even the dumbest cop can catch that clue, but these three thought nobody would catch it.
So this was on the 21st of December. They take the suspect to jail. They have a day off. They come back to work on the 23rd of December, where John writes his report, and he processes evidence, and he puts several pieces of evidence into property and evidence. But they don't put any cash, any money, into property and evidence. What the three of them talk about on the 23rd is, the money's missing. They counted it, all three of them, at some point in time counted the money and determined it was $723. And then I'll fast forward to the investigation. Rosinski said Lawson had the money. Lawson said he didn't have the money. Rosinski had the money, and Garrett Cook said I never had the money, but they all admitted counting the money.
Okay, so here's my investigation on this real quick. This guy made the traffic stop. He's the arresting officer. He booked the evidence. He took the money. Okay? These two guys may count the money and verify, and they may verify the drugs, but he's the booking guy. He should have said, I don't have the money. One of you two have it. Give it to me. And he didn't. He just didn't book the money. So I'm telling you right now, this guy's got the money. But this guy ends up sending him $500, which I kind of think is kind of odd. And they'll get to this on how they kind of conspire to replace the money.
So they decided on the 23rd of December, we've really got a problem here. We're missing money. We've lost the $723. They decided at that point what they would do is they would all kick in and replace the money.
Okay, that's a bad move, and that shows the inexperience. I can't believe that these guys are going to risk their career by kicking in money that they didn't take. If I didn't take the money, I ain't kicking in money. I don't give a shit. I know I didn't take that money. I know I counted the money, and then I gave it to somebody. And whoever I gave it to, that's what I'm saying. And the buck stops there, and I don't care if the music stops and you ain't got a chair, but I am not freaking throwing in money. And these all guys agreed to do this, which is a bad move. Now it makes them all suspect. Because I'm telling you, somebody that $200, I'm not throwing in $200. Are you freaking kidding me? $200 is a lot of money to me. And I ain't giving it because your dumb ass lost it or you other two knuckleheads are playing some freaking game. I ain't dropping the money. If the money's gone, then we need to fucking tell the sergeant the money's gone and let the chips fall where they may. That would have been me, but you know me, I'm not a team player. I'm a jackboot hardcore guy.
Which is inappropriate, by the way. But they never did. And they did not go to their supervisor and say, we lost the money.
He keeps saying we. Those other two guys that backed him up should not be included in the we part. The arresting officer, the guy in charge of the cash and in charge of the scene and the one booking the evidence, booking the woman that made the stop, he's primary. All of this should fall on him. The only reason these other two knuckleheads got dragged into it is they started conspiring about replacing the money behind the scenes, which violated probably lots of policy, and it kind of implies criminal action.
So time goes on. Rosinski even has a conversation and says, you know, I'm afraid before this is over with, I'm going to get arrested for theft. So they still do nothing. Now let's advance into...
That sounds like an admission of guilt to me. Why would I be concerned about getting arrested for theft? You know, if I lost the $700, then I lost it. Shit happens. Go to the sergeant. Sarge, I lost $700. I don't know where the hell it's at. We all counted it. I can't remember who had it last. I don't know where it's at. I know I ain't got it, and I know I didn't take it. And I'll jump on the box, and you can put me on a lie detector, but I know I ain't got the money. Why couldn't they go and say that? Because it don't pass the smell test, and that's why we call it a clue.
March, when our suspect's felony charges are reduced to misdemeanor possession of marijuana. Once that happens, our suspect calls property and evidence and said, hey, I'd like to have my cell phone and my money back.
So I'm assuming that if it's a felony, they get to seize the money. If it's a misdemeanor, they can't. Because he made a point of saying the charges were reduced to misdemeanor and now the woman wants her money back. So I'm thinking, I don't know how Florida statute is. I think this is in Florida. I'm assuming that if it's a misdemeanor, they can't keep the money.
She said it was somewhere under $730. She didn't know exactly how much. Property and evidence refers her back to the district and to the supervisors where the event occurred. She called.
Now, a problem that he didn't mention, and a problem that I would have, is all reports are reviewed and signed off by a sergeant. And if a sergeant read a report and said, we seized a lot of money, and then I review the report and I don't see on the evidence sheet that you booked money, call that a clue. I'm going to ask you a question. Dude, your report says you seized money. On the evidence sheet, I don't see money being booked in. What's going on here? So the sergeant who reviewed that report should be on the carpet also.
Calls and talks to what we call the RID, Regional Intake Detective. That detective was filling in actually for the RID detective, and she said, look, I would like my money back. So he looks, he pulls up the reports, and he says, we'll get back to you. He calls Rosinski and says, I don't see any money here. Rosinski gets panicked. Rosinski starts talking to his buddies, and I'm giving you the 30,000-foot view because, and you can see in the press release, they have different versions of this conversation. In the meantime, Rosinski also calls down to P&E, Property and Evidence. The Property and Evidence lady goes, no, there's no mention of any money in any of that property and evidence that was seized, and ultimately we have. But the Property and Evidence lady went forward and searched all around to see if maybe a piece of evidence got logged by mistake under the wrong case number, and she found none. And then Rosinski says, when he called the lady at P&E, he said, call me back on your personal cell phone. So
we call that a clue. Now we're conspiring. Now we're trying to get other. So this guy already got these two involved, and now he's trying to get the evidence clerk involved by saying, call me on a private line so we can't be recorded and there's no record. That is a big freaking clue. That evidence clerk should have turned on her recorder and called him back on her private phone and recorded the conversation. But anyway, I mean, maybe she didn't want to play cop or get involved, but if somebody's starting to, hey man, I can't talk to you, man. I don't, yo dude, if you can't talk to me, then what are we doing talk? What's going on?
So they had this conversation, and he said, did anybody hear you talking to me? Just forget this conversation occurred. She hangs the phone up, and she says to herself, that doesn't sound right. So she goes to her sergeant.
Good for her. She didn't want to get implicated. She's not going to put her job in jeopardy because this knucklehead's running around trying to clean up that he stole the money. I still think he stole it.
Her sergeant goes to Rosinski sergeant. Rosinski sergeant calls him in and goes, what is this all about? The money. Don't worry about it, Sarge. We got it covered. I'm writing a supplement report. And the sergeant says, stop. I don't know what you're talking about, but stop what you're doing. Everybody did what was right when it came to their attention by our suspect, who is now the victim of a theft. But these three folks. So our Rosinski sergeant gets with his supervision. We start a criminal investigation immediately. This all happens from last Monday. Last Monday is when the lady made the initial request for her money back. We do an investigation, and our detectives and supervisors are simply the very best, did what they were supposed to do. When they saw something that wasn't right, they immediately investigated. And within 5 days...
And you know why they did something right? Because they knew if they didn't, this sheriff was going to hold them accountable. And their ass. That's why when people say that cops are out there lying and planting evidence and all cops know it, I don't believe that, because first of all, I never saw it. Nobody did that shit around me because they knew. And if they didn't know, they didn't even do it around me. So, I mean, I just didn't see that. So most cops are not going to put their career in jeopardy because you want to do something stupid.
Days of this being first brought to our attention and us sorting through and talking to the supervisors and the P&E and completed an investigation. On Friday night, we locked all 3 of these deputies up. Now, I can tell you I've been with the sheriff's office my entire adult life. And from memory, I can only remember 2 other occasions back in the 1970s. This is the first time ever that we criminally charged 3 deputies. And it wasn't just for the event, it was for the cover-up. They attempted a cover-up, and they all 3 committed criminal charges.
See, when the money was lost, had they reported they lost, there's no criminal act. I mean, unless they can prove you stole it, unless this guy ran to the bank and deposited $720 in his account, there's no way to really prove it would have went as a loss. They would have probably got a letter of counseling, failure to secure evidence, failure to maintain custody evidence, resulting in $700 loss. They may have been ordered to replace the money, and it would have been cool. They would have got out of it okay. But, man, when you start as a cop, I'm telling you, man, that's why a lot of cops don't even want to talk about conspiring to crimes. Because once they talk about doing something, now it's conspiracy. It's a crime. And conspiracy is a felony. Even to conspire to commit a misdemeanor, it's still a felony. That's why a lot of cops just don't want to get into that discussion and conspiracy shit about covering up for somebody.
Yes, or criminal violation of Florida statutes. Let it be clear that I commend everyone from the suspect who made the initial report, to the property and evidence lady who said this call's not right, to the supervisors on the ground when they first became aware, to the investigating supervisors and command staff for doing the right thing. We would have done the right thing. They did the wrong thing. We still did the right thing. We locked them up in jails where they belong. So let me give you some background. As a result of this horrific, totally illegal, in violation of all the policies conduct, we will go back to each of these folks and audit every report they ever wrote that dealt with them.
Now, who thinks this guy is just talking smack or he'll really do it? This is how you get credibility in my book. He goes out here and admits that he had 3 deputies doing the wrong thing and he arrested them. He doesn't try to cover it up. He doesn't try to say this is an isolated incident and, this is very rare and, we can't believe it happened. He doesn't make excuses. These dumbasses did something wrong. When we found out about it, we did the right thing and they were held accountable. That's the difference between good law enforcement and the shit we see everywhere else.
An arrest or seizure of any property. It will take us some period of time. And here's my promise to the community, and here's my promise to these 3 folks. If we find evidence of any other criminal event, we will go back to your house and we will arrest you again and we will put you in jail. You were working all week long on arresting them in the first place. Supervisors from the sheriff's office contacted the state attorney's office and requested that the criminal charges against the suspect be dropped because we can't vouch for their credibility any longer.
Well, the state's attorney would have probably figured that out as soon as he charged them and saw that his 3 cop witnesses for a crime were charged with stealing or theft or conspiring to commit theft or conspiring to hide and give false testimony and make false documents. As soon as he saw that, their credibility screwed, so he would have dismissed the case anyway. But they just went up there and go, hey, we just arrested 3 of your primary witnesses. You might want to dismiss this case.
We also promised to the state attorney's office that we would audit their case reports, decision by the state attorney's office as to whether they accept their testimony on any pending cases. But
they will not testify on any pending cases. They all resigned when they were arrested. And any cases that are pending will get dismissed. That's why attorneys always like to drag cases out and do long-term, waive time, and drag and get extensions on cases because they're waiting for something like this to happen to either the cop gets shot and killed, he gets caught in a domestic violence, evidence is lost, somebody moves, the prosecuting attorney that's handling the case changes offices and quits. It's always beneficial and harder to make a case when you go longer because witnesses forget things, witnesses move, witnesses don't want to cooperate, cops get in trouble, etc.
Add beyond words that these 3 folks have impugned their reputation and, more importantly, of the other 1,000+ deputies that work here with their criminal conduct. Negotiated pleas, it all requires them to spend some period of time in jail.
So he's saying he's going to go to state's attorney and go, look, if you give a plea deal, we want them to do time. So don't plead time served, they lost their job, which usually that's what happened with cops. What this does is it tells all the other 1,000 cops that work for him, you better not fuck around. Because if you do, he's going to have your ass and hold you accountable. See, I would venture to say he doesn't have a lot of bullshit going on in his department. And his cops run around and they think before they act. And they think about policy. And they think that I'm going to be held accountable. He doesn't have a lot of rogue cops out there. And I wouldn't even say these cops are rogue. I say these 2 dummies kind of got looped in with this guy because he freaking screwed up. And these guys were going to try and help him. And they made a bad call.
I want the community to know it. We've also made arrangements through our now victim to not only drop the charges, but we will be working with our legal affairs department, our finance department, to give her her money back. And certainly we'll go back as part of any criminal prosecution on them to try to get us reimbursed.
When you take a plea on a criminal constitution, they can make you plea as you agree to pay restitution to the crime victim. So any plea that these guys get, they're going to have to say, we're going to pay back the money. So they'll probably divide the money into threes, and each one of them be responsible for a third of the money to be paid back.
We don't know where the money is. We highly suspect that one of the three of them stole it, that it was never lost. We think that's just a lie along the way. But which of the three of them ultimately got the money, we don't know. It appears to us from everything we can put together from all of these convoluted stories that John Rosinski was the last one with the money.
I agree.
Before it disappeared.
See, there's no reason for these guys to have or keep the money. Cops don't like to do paperwork. These guys were backup. He was primary. He was making an arrest. I'm not keeping your evidence if you're primary. I don't want to have anything in my car. You want me to count it? I'll verify it. You want me to initial something? I'll initial it. But I don't take anything from your arrest because you're primary, you're booking, you're arresting, it's your stat, you do the work. So the only way that would have been changed is this guy said, hey man, I've got a lot of other cases. If you're going to go book some evidence, can you go book this for me? And he says he gave it to this guy to go book. And then when this guy booked the evidence, he only booked everything but the money. Now we got issues.
And you just don't lose $723 in small bills. As you can well imagine. Well, Michaela Butler, who's 25 and a detention deputy, she decides to go to some kind.
This woman's like, damn, man, I have to do this on the day he's doing a press conference on the other three knuckleheads. Now I'm going to get in trouble for drunk driving.
Kind of an event over the weekend down south with some friends, and she gets arrested for DUI. She's a detention deputy. She was driving erratically on State Road 31 in DeSoto County. She ran off of the roadway. She crossed back over the center line,
and she probably pulled her badge out and said, hey man, I'm a deputy when you pulled me over, and they arrested her anyway.
Deputy from DeSoto County stopped her. I applaud the deputy for enforcing the law and taking her into custody for driving under the influence. She is suspended pending investigation, and obviously if our investigation supports their investigation, that's also a termination event.
He's going to terminate her. He just can't say that because he's the reviewing authority, so he has to wait till all the evidence is in before he decides. If he said right now that once his investigation is over, I'm going to fire her, as soon as he fires her, she's got an appeal because he made the decision before he had all the facts. That's why you'll see a lot of chiefs saying, we haven't made, we're waiting for the, because they don't want to lose their ability to fire him if they make the decision too early. He already knows he's going to fire her. I know he's going to fire her.
I've said it a lot. I'll say it again. We enjoy trust from this community because we hold our deputies accountable and to a higher standard. I appreciate the fact that our deputies and supervisors and employees, support staff, as soon as they got information about wrongdoing, they brought it to our attention, and we're always going to do the right thing. And this is one more exception, or one more example of doing the right thing. So with that, do you have any questions?
This dude is a great sheriff. He don't play. I like him. His deputies know he don't play, and they're more accountable. I would venture to say he has a low rate of complaints of cops doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they know that he's going to have their ass. Good for you. I like this guy. All right, we'll end that there.